Good afternoon. In this mini training session, we're going to cover the new features of the recently released Workbooks 6.8. I hope it's of interest to you. So, hello, my name is Tim Wilmot, and I'm joined by my colleague Peter Johnson. Our company, Wizard Systems, we're a leading independent CRM solutions provider of systems like Workbooks. I know many of you listening live now will be fully aware of us. And we help organizations to use simple solutions to improve their sales, marketing, and customer service productivity. So thanks for joining us today for this fairly short Workbooks training session on the new feature of the new features of 6.8. This presentation will be about a quarter of an hour or so in duration, just meant to be an overview of the features, not really in-depth training as such, but my company, Wizard Systems, we offer any kind of training on any aspect of Workbooks. If you want to explore those with us, Peter or myself, please let us know. Now, the audio part of this presentation is one way only. If you've got any questions, please pop those into the question box on your meeting control panel, and we'll do our best to answer those at the end. And this call is being recorded as well. After the presentation, you will get an email from our system, normally after a day or so, with a link to recording. And it will be up on our YouTube channel as well. If you just go up to YouTube and do a search for Wizard Systems, you'll see our channel up there with loads of other Workbooks training videos. So just a recap of us. I know many of you know of us, but we are long-standing providers of CRM solutions with many, many years of experience. And we cover any aspect of a Workbooks implementation as regards customizing throughout your requirements. Training can be your place, our place, or online, and all the ongoing technical support as well. Okay, so let's go into 6.8 then. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Peter. Here we go.
Thanks, Tim. Good afternoon to everybody. It's Peter Johnson here. Just going to share my screen, Tim, just to make sure you can see and hear me.
Yep, looking good, Pete.
Great. Okay, so yes, good afternoon to everybody. As Tim mentioned, we're going to just have a look at the highlights of the most recent update to Workbooks. I think it was a week last Saturday when it all came out. So you may have seen some changes. You may have got onto this already, but I'm just going to give the highlights to some of those major areas that I thought were worth showing today. So we're going to go through some changes to the email. So there's an email assistant panel. You might have seen that appear on the right-hand side if you're using Workbooks to send emails. Also, snippets, which are part of that panel and allow you to add text quickly and easily to emails. Scheduling of emails, a really useful feature for those advanced emails that you might want to send. And some changes to the authentication option for sending emails via Workbooks or from Workbooks via the Microsoft Office 365 account. Setting up that account is a lot easier now. Reporting, so there's some changes to some of the things you can do in reporting. The text wrapping, which is a really useful one, I thought. Lead to opportunity conversion. This I wasn't really sure where to put this in the topics really, but the ability now, when you convert a lead, you can now report on it really easily because before there was a link missing to get to the opportunities area, but you can report on both the lead and the opportunity. Report on tasks and meetings separately. It was before, and it was all in one place called activities. So your entry point to the report might be activities. So then there are some miscellaneous ones that I've put under this topic at the end. Rich text editing, screen change. There's some changes to the main screen display behavior, moving the fields around. You can change the label around a little bit, just quite useful to see that. Adding relationships to people or organizations to transaction documents. They've changed the way that you can do that. It makes it a little more granular, which is quite nice. And also guesses the information that you're going to put in there, which is quite clever. and then some changes to the mapping tool. Those of you that use the mapping tool, it's very simple. I use circles instead of squares, but it's quite useful when you're crossing over areas and you want to see a mix of nearby areas where they cross over, so it's quite useful. So let's get and have a look at this. I'm just going to go into my Editable training system so you can see that okay. And let's start off with that email area. So I'm just going to go here and open up a contact record. I'm going to open up Alan's record here. And I mean, there are always several ways of sending an email. You can clearly go to Start New and Email and then add the address, or if you've got an address on the screen, very easy to select the email address field and use a drop down to see how you want to send this. And what we're talking about here is sending using Workbooks, the one at the bottom there. But mostly I use the little pick list, the drop down at the top to get to my emails, and you can see here I can go to a blank email and send it in the normal way. And I can choose, because I've got several accounts, I can choose which account it's coming from. But the new bit is this side panel. So you can see here, and you may have already put side panels on some of the record types throughout the system. It was a new feature a couple of builds ago, but they've added this to the email, which is a really nice, useful way of getting to templates and also snippets, which I'm going to show you shortly. But the templates, these are the standard templates that you can add to the system in the normal way. But what they do is they present on this side panel to make them really easy and quick to select. So, for example, if I was sending an email to Alan, just confirming the delivery address that we spoke about, which I've got on his record, if I click on that, I can apply that template, and you can see it updates the email with the template that I've chosen, and I'm pulling information from the record itself just to use the normal mail merge facilities in those templates. But the bit to show you here is really the ability to select them from this side panel over here, and you can see I can shrink and hide that. The other part of this, which is really quick and easy to show, is snippets. I would say snippets are, if you've used them in other applications, the naming is fairly familiar, but it really is a block of text that you might want for some reason. So, for example, if I click my cursor into the email, if I expand the snippets area here, you can see I've got one called opening hours, and you could have a whole list here. But you place the cursor where you want that information, and if I click on it, you can see, hopefully it's added this bit of text, just confirming some opening hours on my email. So if you're using regular paragraphs or blocks of text, you can store them in snippets. And both of these are available to enter in the menu via a landing page, or you can, if you go into this little arrow button here at the top of the heading there, it'll take you into the snippets area, and you can add new snippets really easy to add in the normal way. Okay, so email panel there. We've looked at templates, and we've also looked at snippets. I guess last to show you on the email side of things is the ability to schedule this delivery for the future. This can be used for a number of reasons. You might want to send it at the end of a day where you collect them all together and they all go out at a similar time, or perhaps you've got something like a contract and you want to send a reminder in 9 months' time, for example. You could, instead of just using the send button in the top left here, you can actually choose the option to send later, which brings up a schedule, and you can use the calendar feature, or of course the new kind of pick list drop down where you can choose a quick diary period and then a particular time, and then schedule the send. And this will sit in your outbox and clear when that criteria is met, when that send date and time arrives. So really easy, really simple, but I think this is quite a good addition to what was a useful window anyway. So I'm going to close that email and then have a look at the next option, which is some of the changes to the reporting feature. Again, quite quick and simple to go through. we've got the first one of those is a multi-line option. Prior to this build, when you used a report, you only saw single line item information, and where the field that you were reporting had multiple lines, it didn't show, although it was in there, but it didn't show on the screen. But you can see here, as my example, I've got a street address field I've added to this report, and you can see it shows and wraps the text in that. You can also wrap the headings if you wanted to. These changes are really easy to add to an existing report if you're already reporting on those multiple line fields. If I edit this report here, you can see on the View tab of the tab that we're looking at within the report, you've got this wrap column values, and you can say how to align that, top middle and left, obviously, with the maximum number of lines it's going to show on that report. And you can see just above there, if you do have some long column names, you might want to wrap those as well in a similar fashion so they show nicely on the screen. Okay, so text line wrapping, and we'll have a look at on reporting as well. If I go into the report design area, so start reporting, and when we choose to create a new report, there's an option now where you can report, previously it was just on activities. So if I select the creation of a report here, create new report, previously we only had activities, but you'll notice down here that you can, if you wish, report on separately meetings and tasks. This can be quite useful for things like bulk updates, or where you're creating some automation in the system just to report on one type of activity, and can be quite useful, whereas you didn't have that option before. I know some of you online today, we have to mix up the column headings and things just to make it work, but it's a lot easier now. So that was meetings and tasks being separately reported on. And also now, if you do create a sales lead report, one of the things that you can extend to when you're adding fields, for those that are into designing and creating reports, when you add a field, you can actually go to the related opportunities now. So when you have converted a lead, a sales lead, it used to divorce itself from the sales lead, the opportunities standing separately, but now you can actually do it. But things like lead conversion reports are really quite quick and simple to do now for those of you that need it. So some really useful changes there again for the reporting area, I think. And I'm going to get on to my miscellaneous items now. There's a very slight change to any rich text fields. They've added a bit more control on what you can do. So as an example, if I go to maybe a new meeting, which has a rich text field down here in the description area, you can see in the normal way, you get this little toolbar, which was there previously, but we have an extension to that. So you have a few more formatting controls in a rich text type area and this menu. So this is available wherever there's a rich text field, and you can shrink it or expand it, but it just gives you a bit more useful, bullet points and things like that that are now available. And you can also see the HTML source code behind if you needed to paste in some text from an alternative source, for those of you that are familiar with that. So a small change there, I think. The other thing as well that's worth showing is some behavior to field labels. For setting up the screens, you were always restricted before to having the label at the left-hand side of the field itself. And sometimes if you put those into smaller sections, it kind of didn't leave room for the label and the field itself. But you can see here what I've done is I've made a slight change to the settings. And if you are putting labels into fields in the screen designer, you'll see there's a very simple option to either put it at at the top here, so you can put it above the field. The other option as well is to remove the label altogether. I'm just thinking about one of the people attending today where we did some survey type screens, and there was 3 columns of tick boxes, but there was a label next to each one, and that would be a lot cleaner without having a label at all, but you know what the field is in the background, and you can put those in. So I think it'll tidy up the screens a little bit, certainly on these types of layouts where you've got the fields showing rather than those card type views. So that's display behavior of field labels. Thing related people and organizations to transaction documents. I guess the best way to do this is to have a look at an opportunity record. So if I go into any of these opportunities to Alan, just as an example, I might go into this one. So when you've got an opportunity or a project or something, or an invoice, an order, a contract, it may relate to more than one organization or more than one person. You can see here this particular one relates to a couple of organizations, and also relates to 3 people. But when you come to add new people, what it does, it presents the list of people that are left to associate this from the organization that is linked to the opportunity. So rather than search for these, it gives you a quick view. You can also, when you're searching, search for both a person or an organization. So if I type, remember I'm adding people here, but if I type wizard in here and choose the search screen, you can see it presents here a list of people that are in the organization that begins with wizard. And I can select these people to be also included in this opportunity. And you can see here, I've selected a few. So if I set the relationships, now you had to do these one at a time before, but what they do is they present these on the same screen. So Stuart here might be a budget holder, status or whatever. And we'll put Tim as an advisor, and an external agent perhaps. And you can see here, and the idea of this is to be able to add multiple people really quickly from a search screen, and it adds them with their status and their relationship really quick and easy to access. So I thought that was quite a useful change. Certainly if you're doing a lot of opportunities or project work, it's quite useful to name everybody in there really quickly and easily. Let's have a look at next the mapping screen changes. So this is a very subtle change, but I thought it was worth showing certainly in this. If I go to the organization record just to show you a typical map screen, we've got this nearby tab showing on here. So those of you that are familiar with the mapping screens here, you can see that it shows as a circle now. So it's quite useful if you're doing multiple values. So if I go, let's see what, just see what organization number this particular one is. So we'll go to 1030. So if I go back to this nearby tab, if I add some extra criteria in here, so I'm going to go map position as well. Map position is also within 20 miles of, that was 1030, wasn't it? So that was, let me have a look at it. Let me do it on the other one. My apologies. I'm going to add map position here. Map position is also within 20 miles of org from 1030. And apply that. You can see the crossover. So I think the circular areas are nicer on the eye and certainly have a bit more value when you're looking at those crossovers, which is quite useful. So again, a subtle change, but for those of you with the mapping tool, it might come in quite useful and handy. Okay, so let's just have a look, make sure I've covered everything. Tim, was there anything in your list that I perhaps haven't covered? Are you okay with all of that?
No, I think we've covered those three key areas: email, reporting, and those little miscellaneous things, and particularly around the opportunities. There's some really nice features in that 6.8, which you'll have now. Do we just need to explain to everyone that they have got that now as regards access to 6.8 before we go to questions?
So everything is there, should be there. I don't think there's any features that need switching on. Sometimes when you have new features and you're not getting them on the screen, certainly worthwhile having a look at, from an admin point of view, the configuration. And if you go into account settings, license and modules, make sure that the module that you want to see is switched on. There's a good number in here, and you might see some gaps in here, and you think, oh, I didn't know I could do that, but you have that facility to use it. I don't think any of those new features have that there standard in the product. So I think it came out last Saturday, and if you do ever want to review those new features, the little bulletin screens you can get from your start menu, and you can see down the bottom here there's like a little kind of speech bubble. If I click on there, I can go look. So here's that new release that came out, Saturday the 12th. There we go, with some of those features that we've just looked at.
Okay, so we're now just before we draw this session to a close on Workbook 6.8. If anyone's got any questions, please type those into that question box on your meeting control panel that's floating somewhere over your screen, and we'll do our best to answer those. Looks like there's a couple of questions, Pete. First one from Frank. I saw something about grid edit, but can't get mine to work as it's not available as an option, ?
Interesting. We're just having a look at these modules. So if you have seen grid edit, I think that came out a few months ago. But you'll need to make sure that you go into Start, Configuration, Customization, Account Settings, License and Modules, and I think Editable Grids. It's this little option here. Hopefully you can see it. And for those that didn't know, what that allows in a list view is the ability to change it in rather like an Excel type way. So if I go to organizations and all organizations here, just as an example, what that little option does is allow you to go to the view menu and use this edit grid, which makes this screen editable. So if you go in, you can go to the pick lists or type into these fields and change information across your database in a more Excel type way. And then once you're happy with that, you can choose the save button and it feeds back into those records as a save. And then you can switch back off the edit grid, view as grid other than edit. Yeah, but it's probably, did you say Frank? Frank, it's probably that tick box in the modules area needs selecting. Okay.
Yeah, it was a good question to just allow us to mention again a really nice new feature. Those the grid edits makes it so much easier to use. Right, second question from Kit. On your screen, it looks like you have pictures of users showing on activities. How do you do that?
So that might be down to, I think if I go back to the Atlantic Computer Services, you might be looking at this summary idea down here. So this is again a side panel, came out a couple of versions ago, this side panel, but it might be that you, let's just go to different. So on the summary tab, you might see yours like this. And these pictures, these are specific users in the system, and I've done most of the work on this record, it looks like. But the user themselves can upload a picture of themselves. So it's quite useful on these card views because you get an instant view of who did this particular item, and you can add that on the activities area as well. This is obviously a list view, but again, you could have and generate and create a card view, so it looks a little bit like this. So on a card view, to add that for a user can go to their preferences. If I click on the start button and go down to the preferences, you can see here you can just upload a photo. And also the administrator can do that from the user configuration area as well. Just upload a photo there. But it certainly helps when you're navigating around to see instantly who did what when and how. Just for, I don't know why it's quicker to recognize somebody than it is to read the name perhaps in the record itself. Okay.
Get out your old wedding photos.
Yeah, like I did.
All right, well, I don't think there's any more questions. So thanks all of you listening live to our little session here on Workbook 6.8. If you've got any ideas for future sessions like this, anything that might be of interest to the Workbook CRM community at large, please contact Pete or myself. There's our contact details. Well, Pete can be reached at peter@wizard-systems.com. There's me, Tim at wizard-systems.com. Yes, thanks very much for those of you listening live. This will be up on our YouTube channel as well for future posterity. And we'll catch up with you on the next session. Thanks very much indeed. Bye-bye.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Bye.